Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वन्निवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै व्यामोह एकनिबन्धनं चिदानन्दमय ब्रह्म प्रतिबिम्बसमन्विता तमोरजः सत्यगुणा प्रकृतिर्द्विविधा च सा सत्त्वशुद्धिविशुद्ध्याभ्यां माया विद्ये च ते मते मायाबिम्बो वशीकृत्य तां स्यात् सर्वज्ञ ईश्वरः So a couple of things. Towards the end of the last class, as a result of a couple of questions from some students as to why is there samsara, why is there some dukkha, and so on and so forth. And we spent some time on that, but I think that it may be good to just revise that to make sure that you have a good understanding of it. So what we had said in the last class was that the why, if you look at all the gradations of the questions, why, what, how, and for what purpose, these are the four basic questions that everybody has on different things. Out of the different settings of these four questions, well, there may be more, but at least these four main questions, the why is the least significant and least applicable on an overall basis. It could be applicable on a specific basis for rather inconsequential matters. It's very possible. Like, for example, supposing I come in 15 minutes late and you're all waiting for me. The question in your mind must be, why is he late? Usually he's on time, but why is he late today? And it is also incumbent on me to say, wow, the traffic was really bad, or that I forgot, or something like this. So it's appropriate in the setting of a specific incident as to why the case was the case. But we find that if you start to enlarge the setting to encompass more and more applicability of different events, as well as the more significance of the various things, then the question of why needs to be abandoned. And not because that it is not, you can ask it, but it doesn't really make any sense. The answers won't make any sense in the way you approach it. Like, for example, our children also say, you know, Mom, why did you have me as a child? And the mother says, I don't know. You just, you know. And then how come you were a child? Like that. So eventually you can say that this is all fun and games for children, but on a larger canvas of possibilities, it doesn't really have any answers. And the important thing for the Vedantin, this is an important thing to see, it is very important to look at it this way, that the answers are not necessary. This is what I think we should really be very clear about. That the answers are not necessary. It is inconsequential. And as I mentioned to you before, this is nothing new. This has been going on for, you know, every time people ask. The reason that the question occurs in the minds of the people is because, not because of the why, but you doubt it whether it is this way or not. It's actually a politically correct way to say, are you guys making any sense? Nobody would come out and say that. Now, I don't know, Vedanta doesn't seem to really, you know, and this is what happens. Our friends, some of our favorite people that come here from time to time, they all say, is there any experience? Has anybody gained moksha? And so it is just a basic question that, is it true? Or are we just sort of blowing smoke and stuff like this? So that is the back of the mind when why is asked. Because the why by itself needs to be understood, doesn't yield any positive answers. And it doesn't need to yield any positive answers. This is more important. And so this also is tied to the, which we are going to study even today and so on, of the Maya Shakti or Mithya. Mithya means neither here nor there. It's called Mithya. Neither is nor it is not there. Like, for example, the form of an ornament, which was not there at one time. And so you cannot say it is not there, it isn't there now. It wasn't there at one time, and again it will be disappear. So what is the significance of isness of the ornament? This is called mithya. So the mithya meaning, it is the very important technical definition for this is called anirvachaniya. Anirvachaniya. Mithya is anirvachaniya. Anirvachaniya means cannot be precisely defined. Nirvachanam means a very precise definition. All that you need to know, it's all defined in there. Nothing more needs to happen. Like in the case of Atma, the fact that it is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam is nirvachaniyam. It may not be understood, that's a different matter, but it is very perfectly definable. So in fact, it is the very form of the Atma Vidya. Any other Vidya is not complete. Any other Vidya. But Atma Vidya, once it is gotten, it is complete. Why? Because it is only one thing. All other Vidyas are very nebulous. The more you know, the more you don't know. And so, in fact, Another word that is used, we've had 2 or 3 different references to that in the various classes, is achintyam. You cannot precisely look into that. Another one is avyavastha. Avyavastha. There is no vyavastha for it. So going back to the definition of mithya, it is called anirvachaniyam. So the anirvachaniyam doesn't mean that it cannot be precise. It means it cannot be precisely defined. Many of our alternate schools of thought that criticize Vedanta say that ultimately you say it cannot be known. We don't say that. Anirvachaniyam is misunderstood. It is said it is not known. It is known to be never precisely definable. And moreover, our emphasis, and this is an important thing for us to think about in the way we fashion our thinking and so on and so forth, it is not necessary to precisely define it. So carrying that further, now we have 2 different things. One is the question why, and the other one is the anirvachaniyatvam of mithya. Those 2 are exactly the same thing. What is the answer to that? We may not completely understand it yet, but you should have enough shraddha to say, this is what the Shruti is saying, and one day I will completely understand it. What is being said is that the entire samsara, the entire prapancha, the entire jagat, the entire srishti, the whole world, our experiences, has 2 poles to it. 2 poles to it. One pole is, if it is known exactly as it is, then we have no problems whatsoever in life. Life becomes very pleasant. While you are alive, it is pleasant, and videha mukti is very pleasant. If you don't know it as it is, you cannot solve it. You cannot try, it is anirvachaniyam. You can ask any number of questions you have, you can do as much research, and people will say, we are looking at some fundamental particles, we're getting close to it. In the end, there is an X factor. And this is nothing new. This has been, intelligent people have been seeking this forever. Cannot be known. So those are the 2 poles of the Vedantic exposition. So the simplicity of that is that if the rope is known, then there is no emotional problem. If the rope is not known and not inquired into, then you will be afraid of it forever. You better confront it. So now we can close this topic. It means that, so this is what is called the swabhava. The swabhava of the whole Ishvara, the entire Srishti, is this is the way it is. So the why does not lend itself. Why is it? There is no other way to have Srishti except to find that this is the way it is. And this is the way it is has 2 poles. If the Srishti, so this is what is called Brahmagyanam, Atmagyanam or Brahmagyanam. If there is Brahmagyanam, then the whole thing becomes very clear. There's no samsaritvam, no thinking that I am a very small person and what is going to happen to me and all of those kinds of things. If it is not known, no matter what you do, you can never find it. You can never be satisfied. So therefore, now we close the topic that what we need to understand is that we need to replace the why with what and how. And as far as for what purpose is concerned, it is for my mukti, for my complete freedom. And the freedom has two poles to it. Unless I am clear about it, I will never have mukti. And if I'm clear about it, I'm already free. There is no freedom required. So, from a larger canvas of thinking and a more intelligent way of looking at it, we should understand. You can keep on saying why, nobody is stopping you from doing it. What we suggest is this is not an intelligent way of looking at things. Why? Because understand how and what it is, and the fact that the Ishvara is the way it is. Whole the world is the way it is. And the way to answer the why is to understand the what of it. Anyway, this is the commercial. But it's an important thing for us to see because it keeps coming back over and over again. And we need to, and so this answer is strewn throughout the Vedantic texts. Everywhere, it'll come back again and again. And the sooner we get acquainted with this fact, you don't have to accept it, but the moment we keep that in mind, the better off our progress will be. Anyway. Okay, so in going back to what we were saying was in verse number 15, so in fact, you can look at the second line of verse number 14. Yeah, so it's a good connection between what we were just saying and what the verse is saying. So we saw the first line was because of the example. The example was that there were people chanting, and the chanting was heard but not clearly understood. And the reason for that is because of the samana abhihara. That there is a continuous chanting of lots of people that seems to mask the particular chanting of a given person. So tasya hetuhu samana abhiharaha putra dhvani shrutau. In the listening to the sound of a child, this is the pratibandha. So pratibandha is, again, I would remind you, is an important word. And it is an important word because it doesn't mean that it is not there, just like in the case of our eye problem. It is not though your eyes cannot see, but there is an obstruction. Some kind of a film and one that is removed. So it's an important word that there is an obstruction. And obstruction means that it is the solution is there, but it is being hidden from you. So then in the second line, now the first line is the example, and the second line is the exemplified, what is being indicated. So now we go on this is a beginning of a huge discussion about what is the nature of the obstruction. So the nature of the obstruction, he says, is iha. Iha means in our life. In our life. In fact, as I had mentioned this many times before, but I don't mind repeating it, that please don't examine the mirror in front of you. Examine yourself reflected in the mirror. So yes, we have to understand words and, samana, abhitara, some words, etc. That's like examining the mirror. But the real challenge we have is that what is indicated in the book should be seen to be a reflection of my life. And the people who are new to the study, they might take a little while to get to see this. And the people who have been studying for a while, they should reiterate this, go over the gaps. Because every time you look at it and you say, is this is my life? Just like when you look at the mirror, your reflection reflects you. You should be looking at yourself, not in examining what a terrible mirror this is and wish I had a better mirror and so on and so forth. That's good enough. And so iha here means in your life. So he says, iha anadihi avidya eva vyamoha eka nibandhanam. So just like you have the masking of the clarity of the sound because of the multiple people chanting together, here the culprit meaning pratibandha, is some kind of an ignorance. And an ignorance which is anadi. So now this is the connection to all the things we were talking about earlier. Anadi means it has always been there. Cannot say when did it start. It never started. This is the way it is. Cannot say, this is what to say, why did, see, look at this, this is very interesting. So the question of why did Ishvara start this Srishti? Why did he do that? You may not even say why did he start the Srishti, but you can say why is the Srishti? Means there was some kind of a reason for initiating it. There is no initiation. This is the way it is. This is the way we always have been. This is just a continuous progress. In fact, it is said in our Vedanta that from a microscopic standpoint, there is evolution. Yes, for a given individual. If you just follow the path of a jiva, there is evolution in the sense that there can be devolution also. But generally there is evolution in the sense that we get better and better, we learn from our mistakes, we get better, etc., etc. But from a macroscopic standpoint, there is no evolution. The whole thing is exactly the way it is. Infinite. That's why I was telling you, I think this is a good question that my father used to have a question for me. I didn't have the answer to that before I met Swami Dayanandji. Then how come so many new people? He says, my father used to tell me when I was with Swami Chinmanan, and so my father was asking me, have you ever asked him about this? I said, what? He says, have you ever asked him why, if there are people taking moksha, in which case they should be less? Once you become muktaha, then you don't get reborn as a body. I said, yes, that's true. So he says, then how come the population of the world is increasing? And I was sort of saying, I don't know, don't bother me, but I didn't have a quick answer. I still remembered some things. And in the Humboldt College, we had our 1 week camp with Swami Dayanandji. And just within a lecture or two, I said, by God, this guy has the complete answers. That's when I just decided that he was my guru. And so we had a afternoon picnic in the Redwoods. And I still remember that. So Swamiji was there, and so there was not a formal satsang, but people were just asking questions. So I asked him this question. I said, Swamiji, my father was asking me, how come the population is increasing? So he didn't know me very well, hardly knew me at all, just 2 days. So he says, are you a scientist or an engineer? I said, yes. He said, the answer is infinity. Then he kept quiet, and I understood the whole thing. That's it. The number of people are not large, it is infinite. The number of classes like this is not large, infinite. Everything is infinite. And so you cannot say it is increasing or decreasing. You can say that with a particular reference point, that Indian population is increasing, the US population is decreasing. In fact, it is very interesting. Despite our poverty and problems of dirt and overcrowdedness, more people want to take birth in India than any other place in the world. And there's a reason for it. Even the birds and animals and so on and so forth. It's just amazing. You get up in the morning and you see nothing but noise. It's so pleasant. Here, this is just hardly anybody wants to come here anymore, except in Bay Area. Bay Area is getting crowded. So this is what happens whenever there is something good to do. People get anyway. So anadi. This has always been there. There is no evolution at the macrocosmic level. It is maxed out already. So, iha anadi avidya eva vyamoha eka nibandhanam. Vyamoha eka nibandhanam means that any kind of confusion, vyamoha, any kind of confusion here means that a negation of the self. I am not a happy person. This is a vyamoha. This is due to a vyamoha. And here Swami Maheshananji has specifically said, this is what I triggered this thinking about the why of the question. He said, so on page 34 he says it in Hindi. इसी के प्रभाव से ब्रह्म को ब्रह्म रूप से हम नहीं जानते, because of the avidya. अविद्या ही व्यामोह का कारण है. सारे संसार का मोह इसलिए आ जाता है कि पहले हम ब्रह्म को नहीं जानते. इस व्यामोह के रहते हुए संसार का जन्म मरण प्रवाह कभी हटता नहीं. व्यामोह के हट जाने पर कुछ भी चीज़ ऐसी नहीं होती कि संसार के प्रवाह में कोई स्थिरता ला सके. So he's exactly saying the same thing, that unless you have Brahma Vidya, no matter what you do, you may have some positive, you may have some ups and downs and so on, but you're not really making any progress. The real progress is only in knowing the understanding of what is going on. In other words, you're better off understanding what the real nature of the snake is. And the real nature of the snake is nothing but rope, which is harmless. Harmless. So this is the beginning. Then we already saw in number 15 how this happens. So from now on, having introduced the topic, Sri Vidyaranya explains the details of this. So he will go into the elements of avidya, how it affects us, and all of that. So from now on, this is exactly what we're going to do. So there we saw, I'm still revising from last week. So we saw Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita Tamo Rajaf Sattva Gunaha Prakritihi Dvividha Chasa. So there we saw that there are two important words here that we should put attention to. One is called Pratibimba Samanvita. No, it's the whole thing actually. Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita. Okay. Then Tamo Rajas Satyagunaha Prakritihi Dvividha Chasa. Okay. So I gave you the an introduction to, which is from another topic, but I just brought that in here, which is the way the Srishti takes place at the beginning of each kalpa. Beginning of each kalpa. And the beginning of each kalpa means that it is not a new beginning, it is a waking up of the previous kalpa. All the samskaras that people have are back into the seed state and then reappear in the beginning of a kalpa. When it reappears at the beginning of a kalpa, the way it happens is several important things to put attention to here. That the person, which is Ishvara, one person, enters into the various jivas as a reflection. So there's one original and multiple copies. One original. And so one thing to keep in mind here is that Chetana means a sentient person. Sentience can only be one, cannot be multiple sentient. Why not? You can have multiple copies of the sentiency. This is why you're looking at me, who I'm a sentient person, as a object. This guy is talking to me. So you're looking at my copy. And you are also looking at your copy is your own body. So there's only one person, one sentient person, which is Ishvara. And Ishvara enters into all the jivas according to their own samskaras only from the previous kalpa. That's why we do not make an exception that it has always been there. Remember, this is, I said earlier, that we've always been there. There's no beginning. And now you say, well, he enters into it as though it's a brand new beginning. No, it's not a brand new beginning. And in fact, here's what happens. I tell you what. Just look at yourself when you wake up in the morning. And in fact, let me just say one other thing before I give you that example. So, even now, Ishvara is the one who is projecting through you as a jiva. So it's not as though the beginning of the kalpa, Ishvara entered into the jivas, and then after he entered that, he went to sleep or anything like that. He got disassociated. No. He continues to enter into the jiva because there is only one Chetana Vastu. So even now, the Atma, the Chetana Vastu that we are, is the one which is the Chetana Vastu of the Atma, or of the Ishvara, Brahman. And when you are looking at things, it is really Ishvara looking at things. So the only problem is that we don't agree with that. We don't agree with that. We have our own feeling. This is just me. Where is Ishvara? I don't understand this at all. This is all very strange language to me. This is what our understanding is. This is just me. Not true. You are mislabeling. You're mislabeling. It's just like you have your friend's car or something, and you sit down and you really like it, and you say, this is mine from now on. And the fellow says, wait a second, this is my car. He says, no, it's not your car, it's my car. This is what happens in children. This is what happens, especially with boys. It's a very dangerous thing. 4-year-old boy visiting their friends' children. If they find some loose trucks and so on lying around, and this other guy is also clever. He also says, Mom, he took mine. The mom says, no, he's not taking it. He says, yes, I am. This is mine. Now there is a huge problem. The two mothers and fathers have to get involved. They have to bribe them, slap them, something or the other. Exactly the same thing is happening, except that the Ishvara is winking at it. He says, height of foolishness. What can I do? Let him suffer. Let him suffer. That's his punishment. The slapping of the mother is the slapping into our, because we feel that it's just me. There is no Ishvara anywhere. It's just me. Hey, it came from Ishvara. It continues to be Ishvara. And one day, when this is what Jivan Mukti is, and you begin, there's kartritvam and bhoktritvam, and the sense of all of that will go one day. So, having said that, now you will see the meaning of the verses here. Okay, one other thing before I go back to this. I started it, but I didn't complete it. So when you wake up in the morning, then what happens is that first of all, the first thought is, I am. I am. What you are is not there yet. Just for a split second, you wake up, and then you say, that was a nice sleep, and I am. Then your thoughts come about in your mind, and now you see yourself through the thoughts. So the thought is, oh my God, this is Monday. I have to go back to the office. So now you see as a person who is under pressure. You've got to catch BART if you're going to San Francisco. Like Subroto goes, you still go on BART, right? Huh? Caltrain. Okay. So all those thoughts come. Now I better do this. So now here's what happens. When you are evaluating yourself as what I am, not that you are, but what you are looking at your own reflection. Your mind and body is your reflection. It is not you, but it is your reflection. So you immediately see yourself as though now there is a second reflection possible, which is a mirror, which is a physical mirror. That's a different thing altogether. That's just a local reflection. Just to prove that the principle of reflection is there. But the real reflection that you have is your conclusion on who you are, what you're doing. And that reflection keeps on changing. And you are under the spell of that reflection, which is going to come in a minute. I'll show you all of that. So now, here's the thing. Now that episode of the morning is clear, now the meaning of this verse also becomes relevant. So look at the first line of the verse number 15. Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita. So Chidananda Maya Brahma, which is the Brahma, which is Ishvara, which is the overall consciousness. There's only one consciousness. We can call it overall consciousness, only one consciousness. That consciousness, when it is flowing through the reflection, it only manifests when it is reflected. In other words, here's the thing. This example of the mirror is a very beautiful one. We'll go to it. There's so many different advantages of looking at it from different ways. Just like we had this Raju Sarpa, the rope and the snake. This is a rich example with lots of benefits. Similarly, looking at ourselves in the mirror is a very beautiful example. And we will milk it again and again in different aspects. But look at it this way. When you look at a reflection, it requires a Chetana person to look at a reflection. To evaluate your reflection, it requires that you are Chetana, you are awake. Not only are you Chetana, you are awake. Because if you are asleep, you cannot look at yourself in the reflection. So to evaluate your reflection, calling it good or bad or ugly or beautiful, whatever it is you want to say, requires you as a Chetana person. Right? So now, Ishvara is that Chetana person that is reflected through avidya. So avidya here means ignorance, which has lots of different applicability. One of them is that the anatma becomes atma. So this is why you say this is me. And this is a jada body. A jada body cannot be a chetana vastu. A jada vastu becomes chetana vastu because of avidya. And that avidya by itself doesn't do anything. It just sits there. But when the Chetana person evaluates the avidya, just like you are evaluating your reflection in the mirror, then things happen. Conclusions are made, decisions are made. Your evaluation of I'm doing good, not good, I'm getting old, all of those things happen. So this is what it is saying. And in fact, it is said that really speaking, for us to feel bad about the world, how the world is not doing well with me, it's mistreating me and so on, it also requires you as a Chetana person, you are participating in it. In fact, you are blessing it. So this is the meaning of the word samanvita. Samanvita means pratibimba samanvita, means that you are endowing. The pratibimba is endowed with your presence. Whose presence? Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita. And this has three different aspects to it. And before we go into the three different aspects, let us now revise the word Prakriti. We saw that last time, remember? The word Prakriti was Prakarshena Kriti. This is a very nice evaluation by Swami Maheshanandji. I had not seen that one before. Beautiful. So Kriti means, in fact, I couldn't find the exact English word for Kriti last time. Remember we were talking about music and how the various things. Composition is called Kriti. There's many times an artist will say, in Hindi they will say, मैं आपको एक नई कृति सुनाता हूँ. मैं आपको, so in English, the English translation will be, I am now going to present a new composition to you. And the composition is a very beautiful one because the ragas are the same, but the way the ragas are composed by the artist is called kriti. Here Swami Maheshanji says, where does it say that? Yeah. He says, Valmiki Maharshi, who wrote Ramayana in 1,00,000 verses. It's one of the most significant kritis of all times. Imagine such a vast composition, which is all relevant. Every word is very important. It's not just useless words or anything like this. It's a great composition. It requires a Maharshi to do that. The Ishvara's creation is infinitely more powerful, more beautiful. You look at the beauty and the depth everywhere. The entire nature is nothing but kriti. I'm giving you those examples from Swami Dayanandji. He says, will you ever see a iPhone lying on a beach and say, oh, this is an interesting thing. I don't know if anybody did this or not. It just came by itself. You'll never say that. You'd never say that. Anybody would, they will all, if you go to perhaps a village in India whose people have never even seen anything. In fact, they used to, Swami Maheshanji gave this example. He says, if you take a transistor radio, which is really the case, first time in a tribal village, you take just a transistor radio and just put it out on this, people will say, oh my God, this is a booth. It's some kind of a, they'll say, they'll run away. So, in fact, this is interesting. I remember the conclusion drawn from this by Swami Maheshanji. He says, when we do not understand something, then it looks like, what happened? How did it come about? But to a person who has designed it, it looks like a simple thing. Nowadays, transistor radios, even high schoolers can design, no problem. You've gone much beyond that. So similarly here, the whole Prakriti, I didn't complete that thought. So some iPhone lying on a beach, people will never say that no one designed it. It came by itself. But yet, the entire nature, the sun and the moon, and the light and the darkness and the magnetic, we say, this must have come by itself. Foolish, absolutely foolish. And so this is what is called Prakriti. So the whole avidya, the whole Maya Shakti is an extremely well done. We'll go into the Maya Shakti in more detail some other time. I want to go on with this topic for a while. But just to finish off this, so this is called Prakriti. This Prakriti has three aspects to it. One is tamas, one is rajas, and one is sattva guna. And it is of two types. And here in this description of this on page 35, he goes into the anirvachniyatvam of the Prakriti. Anirvachniyatvam. It just means that you cannot precisely define it, how it came about. But you don't need to precisely define it. It's just a marvel. Enjoy it. And let it give your attention to the Atma itself. And we will see all of that. So now there are two types of this Prakriti. So let's look into that. What does it mean? Oh, so the clock is okay now. Number 16. Sattva Shuddhi Avishuddhi Bhyam Maya Vidyecha Te Mate Maya Bimba Vashikritya Tam Syat Sarvagyaha Ishvaraha. Let's look at the individual meaning of that. Sattva Shuddhi Avishuddhi Bhyam. Because of, due to the purity and the impurity of Sattva Guna, these two, Maya has two forms. One is called Maya and the other one is called Avidya, the ignorance. So the same thing from the standpoint of the purity or the impurity of Sattva Guna is called Maya and Avidya. This will become a little clearer as we proceed on, so hold on for a while. And Maya Bimba, the one who is reflected in the Maya, is the one that controls the Maya and is called Ishvaraha. Ishvaraha. Like, for example, supposing you are looking at I think another example would be that you have a single sun who is reflected in various vessels of water. Lots of vessels of water. And it is a natural thing that the one sun becomes many. And they are all according to the quality of the water. And so several things to be talked about here. So one is that imagine Ishvara who is reflected in multiple vessels of water. And this is the Prakriti where one can become many. And these are not just bad copies of the sun. If you have let's say mirror or ponds, you have a very fierce reflection of the sun. In fact, if you look at a sun reflected in a pond of water, you can burn your eyes from it. You don't even looking at the real sun. So you have multiple copies of the sun. And the sun can always withdraw itself like behind a cloud, and then all of them, everything will just go away. So in that sense, he is the Bimba. Bimba means the person who is getting reflected in the Maya. He is the controller of the whole thing. Vashikritya. That one is called Ishvaraha. So Ishvara also is the same Chetana Vastu, but from the standpoint of the creator of the Maya. Okay, so this is one thing. Sattva Shuddhi Ashuddhi Bhyam Maya Vidyecha Te Mate Maya Bimbaha Vashikritya Tam Syat Sarvagyaha Ishvaraha. Let's go to number 17, and then that completes the second part of this. So in fact, we have not, I don't think we've chanted it, so let's do that. Avidya Vashagas, sorry, let me see, Avidya Vashagastu, yeah, Avidya Vashagastунyaha, Avidya Vashagastvanyaha, Tadvaichitryatanekadha, Chaivichitryatanekadha, Sakarana Shariram Syat, Sakarana Shariram Syat, Pragyaha Tatra Bhimanavan, Pragyaha Tatra Bhimanavan. So the first part of the Maya, which was due to the Sattva Shuddhi being pure, both of them are Sattva Shuddhi, but one is purer than the other. So the purer one would be called Maya Shakti, whereas the impure one would be called Avidya Shakti. So one very quick extension of that example that I showed you, which is the sun reflecting in various pots of water. Okay? So now what happens is that if you have a jiva, like you and I, first of all, the pot becomes my body, and my reflection, which is the same consciousness as that of Ishvara, now gets enclosed by the body, and the reflection of the sun is not clear, and it depends upon the quality of the water. And I feel I'm enclosed here. I feel I am under the vasha. I am under the control of this body, and my mind is not very clear. You're looking at the same reflection, but from the standpoint of a jiva rather than from an Ishvara. This is how the interplay goes. Anyway, coming back to this, avidya vashagaha, one who is under the control of the avidya, tu, on the other hand, anyaha, this is someone who is different than the Ishvara. Now, Brahma, which is the content of Ishvara and the content of Jiva, remains the same. See how it is? Because for you to see the reflection and make an evaluation of it requires Chetanatvam. It requires that you're alive and you lend your support to it. But the resulting conclusions are very different. In one case, it is the controller, and it says, wow, look at this whole Srishti. What a wonderful Srishti it is. Everybody has slightly different. Somebody's yellow, somebody's red, somebody's green, and so on. Whereas individually, we feel we am trapped. We are always looking for something better. Because the viewpoint is a completely different one. That's all that matters between a jiva and an Ishvara. In a way, another example of that is that, like a magician who wields a magic, he or she is the wielder of the magic. But the people who are under the spell of the magic, they get they are bamboozled by it. It's the same magic, but one is the wielder, the other one is wielded. That's all that happens. And in both cases, the Brahman remains the same. So with that, avidya vashagaha tu anyaha tat vaichitriyat anekadha. And so there are many because of the variegated nature of the Srishti. Vaichitriyat anekadha. Okay, so this is what happens. Then so now the shariras are all different. All the bodies are all different because of the shape of the pot, the shape of the mind, etc. Then comes a single body which is common to all. This is called Karana Sharira. Second line, Sa Karana Shariram Syad Pragyaha Tatra Abhimanavan. So some interesting things here. So here, the Karana Sharira is the same for all Jiva. The Karya Sharira are different for all the Jivas. Karya Sharira means the Manaha, Buddhi, body. You find that, so for example, a little ant has a different body than a human being, etc. All the bodies are different, and their capability of thinkings are all different. But all jivas, whether it is an animal or a human being, I have no idea about the devas, whether they go to sleep or not. So I can't really. I have to sort of, maybe next time Swamiji is here, we'll ask him. I forgot to inquire into that. That all jivas have a single Karana Sharira. And in that Karana Sharira, there is only ignorance. And there is no result of the ignorance. They say, for example, you must have heard this, ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. But only until the result of the ignorance is not really looked into. Like there's a tragic thing that supposing you have a loved one who was met with a very serious accident, but you don't know it. If you don't know it, you can be partying, can be having fun, going to movies, Padmavat, and enjoying yourself, and so on. Whereas in fact, one of your very close relations has met with a very serious accident. And the reason for that is the ignorance shields you from all the problems. But if you were to find out, you should not be doing this, but supposing you're watching your iPhone in the middle of Padmavat, and you find out that then the whole thing goes. So similarly, the Karana Sharira is where it is only total ignorance, there is no Karya Sharira. And in the Karana Sharira, everyone remains the same. What a beautiful creation of Ishvara. There's a story here that Swami Maheshananji pointed out. He says, there was a Raja, and he went to a Mahatma and said, I really like your teachings. You feel that Karana Sharira is everybody remains the same, and they all have the same Ananda. And I don't mind it, that as long as everybody has the same Ananda as me, as long as they don't have any better Ananda, as long as they have the same Ananda, then I'm okay with it. It's okay. It's all right. So, isn't that right, Mahatma Ji? So the Mahatma said, actually, that's not true. He said, what? What do you mean it's not true? Mahatma says, my Ananda is the same as yours for quite a bit of the time, and it is better than you at other times. So he says, how can you say that? Because the most beautiful Ananda we have is when we are asleep and we are all the same, right? He says, okay, you ready to listen to me? Sit down. Raja. He says, listen, here's what happens. At the end of the day, when I'm ready to go to sleep, I think of Ishvara. And I think of myself as nothing but Ishvara. And that gives me a certain peace of mind which is indescribable. When you go to sleep, your chief of staff has just given you a list of problems to be dealt with tomorrow. And you're not sure whether you should tackle them or not. There are people who are, there's some other Raja who is ready to attack you, and you've got to make a decision, should we allow that person? There is a drought in your kingdom. You have to see that. So you go to sleep with a lot of worries. During the sleep, we both remain the same. So I'm better than you before I go to sleep. I'm the same as you after we go to sleep. And then when you wake up, you start thinking about, oh my God, here is my kingdom. And you also look at your wife to see if she's still asleep or not. And then children, your worries about it, all kinds of problems. He says, I don't have any of that. All I think about is Ishvara in the morning. What a blessing it is to be born. And may I be united with him as soon as possible. And the rest of the waking hour is also wonderful. Therefore, I'm better than you. The Raja says, oh my God, you're right. That's exactly right. So this is our situation. That the Karana Sharira is the same, but the Karya Shariras are all different. But what a beauty of the Ishvara, that really everyone has given the same. And you know, it's interesting that really 1/3 of the day we are all the same. I mean, you take away some Swapnavastha and so on and so forth. What a beautiful thing. So one last thing, and then I will give some more time for question and answer. So in this number 17, this was also something I didn't think about it before. He says, Sa karana sharira syat pragyaha tatra abhimanavan. Pragyaha. So generally speaking, in our Vedantic texts, the person who is fast asleep is called pragya. And the reason it is called pragya, again, it is pra-agya. Prakarshena agya means totally ignorant. Ignorance is bliss, that kind of a pragya. This is how it is said that one who is asleep is pragya. Swami Maheshananji makes a very revealing analysis. He says, no. The person who is a pragya, and this is following Swami Vidyaranya's teaching, by the way. So you can imagine what I'm teaching you, which is the analysis of Swami Maheshananji, is the same as the analysis of Swami Vidyaranya. According to Swami Vidyaranya, he says, pragya tatra abhimanavan, which means that the pragya is the one who has awakened but not yet taken on the identity of a waker. How can we say that? Because while you are asleep, you have no abhimana. You don't know that you are sleeping and you are comfortable. You don't know that, because the kartritvam, bhoktritvam, the ahankara, all of this is not there. But it is there for a short amount of time. In the morning, provided you woke up not in the middle of a dream, but you were comfortable in sleeping, then you feel, oh, that was nice. That feeling that was nice is called pragya. Beautiful. Oh, it's unrefutable logic. Because that's why he uses the word abhimanavan. Abhimanavan means, let's see what the English translation is. Yes, one who has the identification. Identification with what? Because I had a very pleasant sleep. There your identification is not as a samsari yet. That will come later. But you feel, I'm blessed. What a wonderful sleep it is. And as we have been saying before, we need to use that as a beachhead to spend more time thinking about it. Don't be in a rush to get up. Allow yourself, even if you're getting late, it's okay. Another couple of minutes is not going to kill you. Just say, my goodness, what is my nature? I'm a conscious being. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to be successful. I don't need to be the president. I don't need to be the CEO. Nothing. I am just what I am, completely blessed. And may I develop this more and more. It's not as though you're lying the whole day or anything like this, but see the viveka, that how you suddenly then impose yourself as the abhimani of a samsari, and how it slowly seeps into you. But the very fact that it is possible that you have an identity which is free of samsara is a very beautiful thing. Otherwise, it will never be possible, but it is possible. That is a revelation by this word. I had not seen this one before. He says, Sa karana sharira syat pragyaha tatra abhimanavan. That identification of a person is called pragyaha. Anyway, I'll stop here and then we'll continue with the rest of the analysis of avidya, maya, then Ishvara is now brought in, then distinctions between sattva guna, rajo guna, all of that will come. But this is the waking up of the human being from deep sleep, which is so very pleasant. Anyway, Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yeah, Kalpana?
I'm getting a bit confused between Karana Sharira, which is avidya, and Karan, the cause, Brahman, who is the cause of the whole creation, who is supposed to be all-knowing. So what's the difference?
So the thing is that, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So the Brahman, which is the only Chetana Vastu, you cannot have a conclusion without sentience. In other words, for example, supposing you're looking at, just to translate your question into an example, supposing you are looking at yourself in the mirror and you become unhappy because you discover that there is some more gray hair, you know. So the karana for that is aging, right? Now, can that happen if you are not conscious of it? No. So you as the Brahman is the very reason why this conclusion took place to begin with. But really, Brahman is not the one who's making you age or not age. It is simply there as the very basis. So that can be seen as the ultimate karanam. But the really operating karanam is aging. So Maya, etc., is the karana sharira. Avidya is the karana sharira. Here, Brahman is simply the very adhisthana. So it is discussed very much that this is not a operating karana, but nothing is possible without Brahman. Nothing is possible without a Chetana Vastu. So at the end of the day, the Chetana Vastu has to be involved. And in fact, this is where our freedom comes from. that I have the ability to now realize that I don't have to get involved. I don't have to get involved. In fact, we can see that we will go into this in much more detail. That my assessment of my reflection, that I'm getting old, is my assessment of the reflection. The ultimate Brahman doesn't get old. And so that is the ultimate freedom which I have the ability to do. But anyway, to go back to your question, so the avidya is an operating karana, whereas Brahman is the very possibility of the operating karana to become karana. Because without that, you cannot even have anything at all. Something like that.
So that Brahman is all-knowing. He's the total knowledge here.
Brahma is not all-knowing by itself. Ishvara is all-knowing.
Okay.
Brahman is knowledge it is the very content of the knowledge. So it's not as though Brahman does not have a personality. Brahman is the person, which is the same as you and I. You and I are Brahman, which is the person. If you are Ishvara, it's an all-knowing personality, all-knowing personality. A Jiva is a limited knowing personality. So Brahman is like the water, and the ocean is Ishvara, and the wave is Jiva. So you cannot say that that water is all-knowing, that it is very large. It is the same, even Jiva has the same Brahman. You see? Yeah.
But then Ishvara, we say Maya Shakti, Ishvara, definition of Ishvara.
Yeah.
He has a power of creating, which is a Maya Shakti. With that is Ishvara. And the Brahman is a pure Atma, is Brahman.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
I mean, that's
Then
what we were
why-
just discussing. So how is this point any different from that?
No, but then the question is that the confusion is that when you said you and I are Brahman and Ishvara is, I thought the Brahman is all-knowing.
No, this is what we were just, my answer to Kalpana was that the all-knowingness can only be in a personality. Like the size of the ocean, size of the ocean only pertains to the ocean. Water doesn't have a size. See? Yeah.
So Brahman is the knowledge itself.
Yeah, it's the consciousness.
Ishvara is the one who knows that knowledge or uses it to do the creation.
So Ishvara is the one who is the Sarvagya, Sarvashaktiman, and not a creator as such, because as I mentioned, there is no creation. It's always been like this, right? So he is the one who's the wielder of order in the whole universe. In that sense, he is the Sarvashaktiman and Sarvagyaha and Karma Phaladata, Sarva Karma Phaladata, etc. All those kinds of things. Somebody has to maintain order. No one can escape from doing things which are part of the whole creation and so on. Yajna. So it is that. But that is only in relation to ourselves as a jiva. So I think we should simplify it just in the case of the ocean and so on. That really speaking, the ocean is the Ishvara, the wave is the jiva, and both of them are nothing but water. So yeah, so Ishvara becomes Sarvashaktiman, Sarvagyaha, and Jiva becomes Alpa Shaktiman, Alpa Gyan. That's all. But if you give out the personality of the Jivatvam, then the person remains the same. But it's not something I'm willing to give up yet. But when I do, then my understanding of the infinitude of myself is the same as that of the Ishvara, which is Brahman. Yeah.
Causal body, you say, is common to all living things. What is its relation with Atman?
So it is imposed on the Atma. So when you say, so just take a look at ignorance. So when I ask you, do you know Uriya? You say, I don't know. So you have ignorance of Uriya. Ignorance of Uriya can exist in your Atma. Atma has nothing to do with it. So Atma is I know. I know. And you know what you don't know, and you know what you know. So ignorance, Karana Sharira, Karya Sharira, everything exists in Atma itself. That's all. So the Atma does not, this is why, for example, a lot of people ask, how is it that Atma cannot stop a criminal? Because the Karya Sharira of a criminal is bad. And the Atma, it also resides in the Atma. The Atma is not bothered by that at all.
So does Avidya.
Avidya, same thing. Avidya also. Avidya, which is the Karana Sharira, which was your question, as well as the effects of the Karana Sharira, which is all the Karya Shariras, are all enclosed in or held together by Atma. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been reading Hindu literature for quite some time. I always thought Brahman was same as Ishvara, which is the first time I'm hearing.
Yeah. No, they are different. Yeah. I mean, they are, Ishvara also is, I think the best way to look at it is that there is only one person, but there are many personalities. Personalities are many. And, but there's only one person, and that person is the same, which is the person of the Jiva. Your and my person is the same as the person of Ishvara, which is Brahman alone. Atma and Brahman are one and the same. Yeah. But with the possession of the ability to the so-called create, it is called Maya Shakti, which is the nature of Ishvara. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was wondering, when you had mentioned that there is no vyavastha.
Correct.
And that deals with the samsara, right?
Yes.
So now when we talk about all these gunas in Prakriti, it appears as if we are describing it sort of the vyavastha of how this world comes about from Satchitananda.
Yeah, so vyavastha is, it's not as though vyavastha doesn't mean variegation, some formfulness, and so on. That doesn't mean that that's not vyavastha, it is there. But vyavastha means that there is something that can be completely explained up to the last T and I. So for example, there, one interesting example I was thinking of the other day, that when you say it is 6 o'clock, this is not what the nature tells us. That is a vyavastha for human beings. In fact, the Americans, they are crazy. They change the time. They say it's not 6 o'clock, it is 7 o'clock. What are you going to do about it? you know. So the nature doesn't say it is 6 o'clock. It says the sun is setting and there is some darkness. But the preciseness of it is 6 o'clock, we better be the 7:30 the class begins and so on. That is a vyavastha. That is vyavastha. The nature doesn't say that. Nature, in fact, in India, as you know, in the villages and so on, they wake up and the sun gets up, and they go to sleep and the sun goes down, and so on. So anyway, to go back to your question, so it's not as though that the infrastructure is not there. It is there, no doubt about it. But in terms of the binding understanding that this is the way it should be, and I should be able to completely explain everything, that's not possible. That is achintya shakti. So there is no vyavastha there at all. So vyavastha would mean that everything should be explainable right up to the last point. This is actually how it began, this is how it's going to end, so this is where the why of the question come up. Why did it come about? How can you say that it was always there? So people are trying, and then saying we should be able to describe the creation in terms of particles and this, that, or the other. It's not possible. Not possible because the very nature of avidya, it is not precisely definable and not necessary to define it. So in that sense, we use the word vyavastha. But in terms of the variability, variegatedness of it, in terms of satyaguna and so on and so forth, there is, anytime you have some kind of a creation, you have to have some variegation. And so that is there, yeah. But if you were to ask how exactly it came about and this, that, or the other, we can give you an approximate idea, and after that we say stop asking questions. Put all of your energy in understanding the self. This is what ultimately is the meaning of no vyavastha. Is that you don't spend all of your time externally looking for answers, because it's not possible to get precise answers externally. But internally or externally, doesn't matter, but the very nature of the Atma is very precisely definable. That's the one we should go for. That's the sort of like. This gentleman from the JCNC had walked in the other day on the Saturday. So he said that somebody had left the door open all night long. So kindly, when you walk out, just make sure that it is, that thing is removed from there. And if there are other people who are doing it, it's up to them. But from our perspective, we should just close it from that. So, all right, we'll see you next week.